So the outcome of the elections for the majority of the part were as expected if we look at the largest bloc that won, and that was the Sadrist movement. Muqtada Sadr had announced initially that several months back that he was boycotting the elections, and thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of his followers even burnt their registration cards. But if we follow Muqtada Sadr, you know that he tends to flip-flop on his decisions often, and we did feel that this was more of a ploy. And he did come back to the elections. He did enter the race, and he entered very strongly, winning 73 seats, and by far being exceeding more than anyone else, even his closest competitor. That was the anticipated part because Muqtada Sadr is very influential, and also because the decline in popularity of other groups, such as the Popular Mobilization Forces, political bloc, Fatah alliance, experiencing many internal frictions between them and with other groups. However, the other results were a bit surprising. Nouri al-Maliki and his bloc, Dawlat al-Qanun, the state of law, have made a comeback. They're in the third place. And why Nouri al-Maliki, why this is so important and why it has taken such a spotlight is because many had ruled out his political career and had completely signed him off of making a comeback. But he has, especially in Baghdad and in some southern provinces. He won in particular in the poorest provinces, and that can allude to many things. But for now, he is not in a position, of course, to rule out a majority or even perhaps be selective of the coalitions that he can form. But he is in a state to be influential in the next government. In second place, another surprise was Mohammed al-Halbousi and his bloc, Taqaddum, which won strong in the Sunni provinces in addition to other places. Mohammed al-Halbousi has taken full advantage of the collapse of what used to be the Sunni coalition, mostly represented in the Islamic Party, the Iraqi Islamic Party, that has seen a decline ever since 2005 when they were very strong and then continued to fail throughout the other elections. Halbousi won very strong in Anbar and also in Ninawa, which is out of his usual comfort zone, despite it being a Sunni province. However, he managed to cultivate a bloc in Ninawa that was pretty much full of technocrats and people and individuals that the people of Mosul and elsewhere trusted. Hamid al-Halbousi, however, is not an average Sunni politician. He is a Sunni politician because that's the sect that he is a part of. Nonetheless, he doesn't really dab in any sectarian politics, nor does he really resort to identity politics as well. So he's more of a reconciliation of the Sunni identity with Iraqi nationalism, as we don't really need a significant identity here to enter the political realm. And this has worked for him quite brilliantly versus Khamis al-Khanjar, who aligned himself with other groups that have, especially in the last election, he aligned himself with the Fatah alliance, and that had failed miserably. He did very, very weak in these elections, despite spending a lot of money on the campaign. It's an indicative also of where the voters being wiser. And then the Kurdish parties in general, it was pretty predictable. The PUK did not do so well, which is mostly the Talabani backed bloc. However, the KDP, which is the Barzani backed bloc, did very well. And that was a surprise because if we go back to the narrative on Iraq and Kurdistan over the last year or so, there appeared to have been a decline in the popularity of Barzani, mostly due to their closeness or close relation with Turkey, despite Turkish airstrikes and other Turkish incursions into North Iraq that are obviously not popular with the people, but that did not seem to really reflect on the vote. Overall, was there a boycott? There was definitely, as the voting percentage was around 41%, the least since Iraq has started elections. 2018, it was 45%. Nonetheless, given the reactions we had been hearing over the last several months about boycott, about the lack of faith in the political process or in the democratic process overall, 41 is not as bad as many people anticipated. I did not anticipate 41. I was anticipating something within the 30. And then the surprise that I believe personally is most significant is the newcomers, the grassroots movements that had been a product of the October protest movement. Now, we have spoken about this several times before. Many people had ruled out the October protest movements as having any political influence, and that it was mostly just the loss of blood and a waste of time for Iraq without really achieving any accomplishments. Now, several blocs did have, however, entered the political process, believing that they cannot change the system through any kind of protest or revolution or any regime change. But what they can do is they can enter the political realm and try to compete with these much larger blocs. They succeeded massively in the Qar province and the Najaf. And that shows us in these two particular areas in the deep Shia Iraqi south, that these provinces have rejected completely the status quo, and they voted for individuals that do not have financial backing, that are not part of the partisan arrangement in Iraq at any level, that only decided to enter the political theater after the October protest because of the injustice that happened to the protesters, and of course lack of services and everything else. And they won the majority. They actually defeated the Sadrs. They defeated Fatah Alliance. It's not so surprising for the Qar. This has been the heart of soul of the October protest movement ever since it was completely cracked down upon in Baghdad. It moved into Nasiriyah, where protests will convene from time to time, despite the crackdown there. Muqtada Sadr lost a lot of his popularity there as well. So you have these newcomers who don't really have a political agenda or identity except the grassroots national identity of Iraq. In Najaf, it also shows a very interesting realm, a very interesting trend as well. Now, Najaf, of course, is where Grand Ayatollah Ali Sistani is, and he had been encouraging people to vote. However, he did not support a specific bloc or party, but it shows that the people who did vote in Najaf are also not happy with the mainstream Shia parties. Now, they voted for people within the province, of course, but they did not vote for anyone that has been part of the political process for the past 16 years, ever since elections started in Iraq in 2005. That is the surprising bit of the outcome. So we can say Muqtada Sadr is pretty much the kingmaker. We can say that Nouri Maliki has made a comeback. We can say grassroots movements in Iraq post-October, kind of like an opposition party. They have now a presence in parliament. It's not that big, but it's definitely there. Barzani has emerged as the winner amongst the Kurds, and Mohammed al-Halbousi is the new Sunni politician in Iraq.